Our love is alive, and so we begin, foolishly laying our hearts on the table, stumbling in. Our love is a flame, burning within. Now and then, firelight will catch us, stumbling in.
Wherever you go, whatever you do, you know these reckless thoughts of mine are following you.
I'm falling for you, whatever you do. 'Cause baby, you've shown me so many things that I never knew. Whatever it takes, baby, I'll do it for you. Our love is alive, and so we begin, foolishly laying our hearts on the table, stumbling in. Our love is a flame, burning within. Now and then, firelight will catch us, stumbling in.
everything here is just fine. In my mind, excuse me if I say my heart has found its wings, searching high and low, and now at last I know. Morning mist in the Golden Gate. I should walk, but I can't wait. I can't wait to set it straight. I was shaking, but now I am making it right. Here in my mind, my heart will soar with love that's rare and real. My smiling face will feel every cloud, and higher still beyond the blue, until I know I can, like any man, reach out my hand and touch
sound checking, we had this this light rock on before, Governor, and I thought you'd like this sort of yacht rock, they call it. Could you pick up the microphone here just to make sure? What time are we out here? We're going to start at 4:05. We're ready. Are we like live now? Oh, excellent. Good. Hopefully I could talk about soft rock some more. Okay, so it's a couple minutes after 4 o'clock, so we'll get started. Welcome to the latest installment of the Connecticut Mirrors in the Room series, coming to you from the Chase Family Studios at Connecticut Public. I'm John Dankosky. This is the building in Asylum Hill in Hartford, where the Connecticut Mirror is based. Before we start, I want to thank the folks from Connecticut Public for hosting us, of course. Also, West Hartford Community Interactive for broadcasting this event to lots of folks. Thank you to our board members, Lou Golden and Marisol Garcia, for attending tonight's event. Thanks to the audience who've taken some time on this glorious spring afternoon, and the many Mirror readers who've given us questions to consider in advance. We're going to get to some of the questions that people have sent in. We're not going to get to all the topics we could possibly talk to Governor Ned Lamont about, but we'll get to many of them. Governor Lamont, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us once again.
Great to be back, and thank you all for supporting the Mirror. They sometimes drive me crazy, but they do really good work.
They do good work. Before we get started on some of the policy stuff that we have to talk about, it just dawned on me as I was preparing. Whoa, okay, we're better now. It just dawned on me as we were preparing for this that it is probably about 20 years right now since the very first time I ever sat down and talked to you. And I guess I'm wondering how your view of politics, life, America, how it's changed in the 20 years since I first met you when you were running against Joe Lieberman in 2006.
Yeah, I was a former third selectman and a finance board member, and had done a little bit of work in the Middle East, and I thought the invasion of Iraq was one of the dumbest things that our country had ever conceived, and I couldn't get anybody else to stand up, and it wasn't that popular because I was taking on somebody in my own party. I know that feeling, and that's when we first met, and I'm glad I stood up then, and I feel like I see the movie playing again, Groundhog Day, but life be told, I'm somebody who came out of executive role in business, and I think I'm a lot happier being a governor than a senator.
Yeah, that's interesting. Real quick, just follow up to that. How do you see the idea of governing differently from somebody who's like, I don't like that guy in the Senate and I want to take his job, to someone who's actually now done it for a very long time? You have people coming after you for your job. I guess I'm wondering how you view governing differently than the Ned Lamont of 20 years ago.
I think I'm the same guy. I don't see that. I'd say it's gotten a lot edgier compared to 20 years ago. People can be a lot more mean-spirited. Some of that is maybe social media. Some of that's coming out of the White House. Things that were just, you would never have said 20 years ago, you're now saying. But I'll give you some decent news as well, that, up in the state capitol, people get pretty edgy in front of a camera or a microphone, but behind the scenes, we all get on pretty well. And we talk and we compare notes, and there's a certain civility there, which we used to have in the halls of Congress.
Okay, so let's start with some of the things that you have to get accomplished here before the end of this legislative session. Where are we right now with this plan to increase funding to local school districts?
So I can tell you that since Susan and I were elected 7 years ago, we were coming out of the 2010s. It was a tough time, bad recessions. They were raising taxes a lot, and they weren't able to keep up in terms of education funding and municipal aid and not-for-profits. Since been elected, the economy's been better. The state's been doing better. We're one of the fastest growing states in the country now. And that's allowed us to increase, school funding, to get to your question, more than ever, about $500 million. But to your bigger point, what do we do now? Because they've had a revaluation of property taxes, and that meant nobody would have ever done this if we had a blank piece of paper, but the property tax on commercial is going down because they've lost a lot of value, and the property tax on homes is going up a lot. So we're hearing a lot from mayors. My God, Governor, you got to help us out. Property taxes are going up, and education is part of it. So, we've been pretty frugal over the years. Many would say I've been too frugal. And that has meant we've been able to set aside some money. So we set aside $500 million that we could use for what I call affordability, to help out people with a high price of gasoline, electricity, a lot of things. My instinct is a lot of that's going to go to education. Either goes to the municipalities or will go directly to the schools to help them through this transition. But I want to say one other thing. Everybody in Hartford, we always argue about more. I want more for this. I need more for that. You're in short change. I need more. So I've also, I want to think about how we do things better. I mean, why is it that here in Hartford we have many more schools than we've ever had before, a lot more schools, and our student population is down 20%. I want to think about how we do special education, because that's about 35% of the budget here. Special ed for folks with kids with special needs is enormous. And we're going to do everything we can to take care of these kids. But in many cases, every town is incapable of doing that on their own. That's just too big a job. And often they end up sending that poor kid to Massachusetts at $150,000 a year. So that's the type of reform I want to do. So instead of just saying how much more money you're going to give the schools, also how do you put that money to work and make a difference for the kids?
But of course, the money is important. And you're talking about $500 million in total being set aside. I guess the first question is, how much of that $500 million is going to go toward this project? Because we've heard $100 million. We've heard $150. We heard the speaker say he could get you to $170 million to go to school aid. What's the number?
Well, we negotiate this. But I'll tell you my North Star. We have a lot of very volatile revenues. It's the capital gains. So I worry about creating long-term obligations off of very short-term, capital gains. The stock market's very strong right now. So I like to be very careful about how we do that. So of that $500 million, a lot of that's going to go to one-time things, perhaps like rebates and help. But we'll do 100 to 150 million in schools, and probably a little bit of extra for some of our schools that have really fallen behind and have real needs, starting right here in Hartford, Connecticut.
Why could we get $500 million now, but we couldn't get $500 million last year?
Well, I did set aside $500 million to take care of Trump-related cuts. You may remember he was going to pull the plug on SNAP benefits, the band formerly known as food stamps, and people were terrified. They were lined up. It was like bread lines. It was FDR. We were able to backstop people there. Then it was healthcare subsidies. Remember on the exchange? Talk about affordability. That was going to cost people, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. So we did set aside some of that money, to answer your question, to take care of those folks.
So I guess I'll phrase it a different way. If we could find $500 million this year, and we could find a different $500 million the year before, why can't we just find $500 million moving forward? I mean, I think a lot of people, even in your caucus, have been calling for that for years. Could we spend more of the money that the state has to solve some of the intractable problems, including education and other social services?
And probably end up where we were 8 years ago, where we were lurching from deficit to deficit to deficit, and people were making promises they weren't able to keep. I've been proud of the fact that we've balanced the budget 7 years in a row. Some of that money, you may think I was doing it too fast, but everybody made promises to teachers and state employees for pensions. They said, here's going to be a great pension, but somebody else is going to pay it. Well, that came on our watch. We've been able to take care of that. The pension funds have gone from about 35% funded to, close to 70% funded. A lot of that's related to strong capital gains. So look, we have increased funding faster than anybody has in a long time because we've had strong economic growth. But I also understand that the real need. I mean, the idea that we have inflation of 3% does not tell the story for people. Look what's happened to the high cost of healthcare. Look what's going on with the price of energy. Look what's going on with the price of housing. So I'm trying to make sure that we take care of those folks in a way that's responsible but sustainable. Usually in the building, they care about doing something now. We'll figure out how to pay for it tomorrow. That's not my style.
Oh, sure. I guess just to underscore this, though, if we're talking about essentially one-time funds here this year to solve some problems, we don't have a plan for that. So how sustainable is it for next year, right? If we spend an extra $500 million to do some of these things now, How do we continue some of these things into the next budget?
So let's say we're going to make a down payment on education. We're going to get an additional $120, $150 million. The first thing I do is I ask Josh Wojak. He's our head of OPM. He's the budget guy. I say, if I make that promise this year, what's the risk that we won't be able to honor that commitment next year? And you look at what's going on with income tax, which is quite strong. You look what's going on with corporate income tax, which is disappearing. You look what's going on with Medicaid costs, which are going through the roof. At the end of the day, Josh says, I think we'll be able to support $140 million going forward. And then that's the number I start with.
Okay, so part of all this, too, is you've put together a commission to reevaluate Connecticut's education funding system. So this is, I don't know if these are your exact words. It's a blue ribbon commission. It's an attempt to really look at how to solve this problem into the future. What do you hope that this commission does?
One, we're going to take a look at the ECS, the Education Cost Sharing Formula, see if it's appropriate, because it's based upon need, it's based upon the number of students, it's based upon dual language learners. And I can tell you that there are 169 towns that are all convinced it's fundamentally unfair to their town. So I have to work on that. But then bigger than that, John, I want to look at other reforms we can do. I think I spent a few minutes on special education. I'll leave that. But I'll give you one other thought, that is, we as a state spend more of our education dollars outside of the classroom than inside the classroom than almost any state in the country. And we do it for some very good reasons. We have 169 towns. They all have their own education system. They all have their own superintendent, and deputy superintendent, and curriculum director, so purchasing person, and IT directors. So it's tough. When you talk about education, you can't use the regional word because people get really nervous about that. I ran into that buzzsaw. But maybe there's some ways that we can save money in the back office functions and get more money into the classroom. So it's about more money, but it's about more money in the classroom, and particularly how to take care of those special ed kids.
Okay, so if this commission comes back, you're going to give them, what, about a year or so to look at this? And assuming that you're governor again, when they come up with this plan, they come back to you with a plan like, Governor, this is like just wrong. The way we're doing this doesn't make any sense. The ECS formula is completely nonsense. We have to figure out a way to fund education in the state that takes the burden almost completely off of towns and cities and shifts it to the state. Big overhaul. What do you do then?
Take a look at it and evaluate it, I guess. Look, a lot of people hate commissions. Oh my God, a guy can't make up his own mind. Let's have a commission. That'll buy him a little time. We did this for early childhood education, something we had talked about for years in this state and never got done. I worked together. We put all the stakeholders together, and they said, A, we're going to create an endowment for early childhood education. B, we're going to look at the number of teachers or caregivers per kid, compare that to what's going on in other states. And we've got $300 million in that endowment now. A lot of people said, why do you want to have an endowment? Why don't you just put in $300 every year for the rest of eternity? Because I wanted something to last. So we can have a recession, and in case there's another invasion of our Middle Eastern country, we'll still be able to honor our commitment there. So drop your skepticism. I think when it comes to this, we'll be able to make some fundamental reforms when it comes to education as well, but not just the funding, also how we deliver it best.
How does this additional funding that you're talking about right now, this $500 million or $170 million or however much it is to go to schools right now, how does this work within the plans you have to stay within the fiscal guardrails, to stay within fiscal spending limits that you've imposed and that you want to abide by?
Well, these spending caps that I've imposed have been in place since 1993. What they do is...
that you've upheld. I misspoke.
I am probably the first one actually to uphold it. I think there's some truth that... Here it is, and Bob Patricelli knows this better than anybody. What our fiscal guardrails say is you probably cannot increase spending faster than your income goes up as a homeowner, as a small business, or as a government. Fortunately for the state of Connecticut, because we've had good growth, our income has gone up quite quickly. So that's why we've been allowed to increase our funding and investments more than they had in the previous decade. I don't want to fiddle with that because I think all that does is create the same chronic deficits we had for the previous 10, 20 years. I think it's working pretty well. We have strong growth. We're able to make key investments going forward. If we have to make some changes because there's a severe recession or something, we'll do it. And the other thing we've done is when poor Dan Malloy took over, there was no such thing as a rainy day fund. In fact, his predecessor had left him $800 million in operating debt, on the credit card. We've got now a $4.5 billion rainy day fund, which drives some people crazy and say, why aren't you doing it? But in our other bad recessions, you've seen that dip in revenues, 3 times in this last 20 years. And I want to make damn sure that when I make a commitment to a mayor or I make a commitment to a school board, I honor it. We won't have to cut education, and hopefully we won't have to raise taxes. That's a last resort.
So how confident are you right now that Connecticut can continue on this good fiscal path and to save as much money as it has been with, as you talked about earlier, the Trump administration's cuts, the strain of the economy right now, a war in Iran and high gas prices? You had to find emergency money last year. Take me into how you and your staff and lawmakers talk about how to plan for what's coming next, because these things are changing constantly.
Well, I'm nervous as hell about the stock market. It is yet again at historic highs, and yet you look around the world, you see an awful lot of turbulence. So I don't think you can count on the next 7 years as being as strong as the last 7 years. Trump is a whole different kettle of fish. I mean, I'll be blunt. I mean, I was with him for my first 2 years, and he did some mean tweets, and he couldn't really spell COVID, but he kind of left us alone. It was not. As a governor, we were happy to be left alone. This time, he never leaves us alone. This time, every couple of weeks, there's another incoming missile. Often it's money that's been appropriated, we've already contracted for mental health or not-for-profits or food, like I mentioned before, or healthcare. And the bark, I won't say that. If I said the bark is worse than the bite, I'd get bit pretty fast. But usually, we can fight back. Usually we can get most of that money back. But I did, as you point out, put in place a $500 million reserve just in case. We've been able to take care. I don't want to spend all that right now. Right now, there's something called the Big Beautiful Bill. You heard about that Big Beautiful Bill? First of all, if you supported that, there's not a fiscal conservative left in Washington, D.C., because it breaks the bank. But even worse than that, for me as a governor, it potentially takes $1 billion out of Medicaid as early as this November. $1 billion. My rainy day fund can't support that. No state will be able to address that. I can take care of the most vulnerable, and that's what I'm trying to do. I can't anticipate every sidewinder that comes, but I think we're better prepared than just about any other state.
But just for a second, can take me into the conversations as much as you're willing to that you have with folks in your inner circle about how you think about how you're supposed to react to a war in Iran. Like every day you wake up and something different is happening that could affect you and your job and the people of Connecticut. So how do you, like on a day-to-day, plan for that?
I thank God that I have a rainy day fund in case there's some surprising shock that would undo our system. I try and tell my friends in the legislature, don't assume these good times go on forever. Let's make sure what we do today we'll be able to pay for tomorrow and the next day as well.
Yeah. I want to talk for a little bit about workforce development. This is something that all governors have always sort of talked about. How do we align the education system with the jobs that Connecticut employers actually have out there? And I've talked to you about that, and I've talked to Governors Rell and Malloy and Rowland and a bunch of people going back about this, and everyone wants to do the same thing, but something's kind of new and different. Like some of the kids that sat and listened to people talk about workforce development 5 or 6 years ago, and were told you have to get into computer science and you have to go learn to be a coder. A lot of those jobs are being shedded. I think Meta just laid off 10,000 people today, right? Because of a turn toward AI. This is something that it's much like Trump. It's hard for you to control or know what's going to happen next. But how do you think about preparing a workforce for Connecticut when you don't literally know what that workforce is going to be like in 6 months?
One, talk to people. I mean, no offense, but they had never talked to the business community in the state. We just had a lousy relationship. You know, you had Hartford here, and they were in their little world, and you had the business community over there. They glowered at each other, and you know, I come out of that world. I talk to these folks every day. I know the 8,000 people. They're hiring an electric boat over the course of the next year. We have a pretty good idea of who they are, what the job skills they're going to need, and I make sure that LOT Grasso High School is educating some people there. We're pretty strong in the advanced manufacturing, but John, they're easier. What's tougher is those small companies all in the supply chain that need 1 or 2 or 3 people. There we have to work really hard to make sure they have the skills they need. There it's maybe more likely to be interns or apprentices rather than a curricular program somewhere else. And I do tell the businesses, hire these people when they're young. Get them when they're maybe in college or community college. Get them an apprentice program, because once they know why they're learning what they're learning. They know what your business is all about, and they're much more likely to stay in Connecticut and not go to Boston or New York. Remember, 20 years ago, all the cool kids were going to Boston, New York. Today, they're much more likely to stay, A, because we got the opportunity, and B, they're more likely to see what the opportunity is while they're still in high school or college.
What exactly do you think Connecticut should be doing to prepare for an even further revolution of artificial intelligence?
I like Mrs. Toro, who is the head of Central Connecticut State University. You know, a lot of our schools are saying, let's have a major in artificial intelligence so people can learn this new language and make sure we master it. It doesn't master us. She created a minor in artificial intelligence, which means whether you're studying engineering or law or medicine, you're also going to have a minor that teaches you or makes you think about how AI can impact, influence, and how you take advantage of that. Look, obviously, in the innovation economy, people feel pretty confident that AI can be mastered and we can take advantage of it, and there'll be a lot of great, good-paying jobs as long as you know how to use it. Closer to home here in Hartford, I think a lot of us worry AI is algorithmic bias and job loss and people disqualifying me from health care I need or the mortgage I deserve. So we're trying to put in the protections as well without killing the innovation.
Speaking of schools, you were coming in, there were some folks outside protesting specifically about really abysmal pay for Charter Oak State College faculty, like people teaching lots of classes, spending a lot of time, almost full-time work, getting paid like $12,000 a year maybe to do this work, $600 a class. Is that something you've taken a look at?
I can tell you that we have given our state employees in general a raise of about 4.5% every year I've been here, because they were getting zeros for many years before I got here. Again, like not-for-profits, we had some catching up we had to do. And I want to tell you something. People say, tell me something about state government I may not know or expect. And we have really good state employees who care deeply about the work they do, and every day they're fighting for us. And you work at DEEP, Department of Energy and Environment, because you care deeply about the environment. I can go from there. And that's true of a lot of our teachers as well. I can't speak to the specifics of Charter Oak, but I can get back to you.
Yeah, and just asking, just because so many of our schools, not just that one, are so reliant not on a state workforce, but these are essentially adjuncts who are getting paid by the class. You've done adjunct work before. You know what it's like. You probably didn't need the $600 as much as I did.
Represent me very well, I can tell you that.
And so that's, I think, what people are asking about, just the reliance that our schools have on a very low-paid workforce that's not getting benefits for it.
I will say that we have probably, our teachers are paid in the top 3 of any state in the country. K through 12 teachers. We have some of the best teachers in the world that deserve what they have. We have some of the best schools in the world. UConn, obviously, the teachers earn a lot more than they do at Central, where they earn a lot more than they do at Charter Oak. So that's something we got to get better balanced.
I got a question from Alex in New Haven. This is the Early Childhood Education Endowment was designed to create stable, long-term funding for childcare access and workforce support. What's the concrete plan and timeline to fully fund it? How will you ensure it delivers on those commitments?
So the way we're funding it is we put in up to $300 million. Every year we have a surplus. Originally it was the surplus in the operating budget. Now it's a surplus including capital gains, because that gives me a little more flexibility. We'll be able to do a second $300 million tranche. At least that's what I've got before the legislature right now. I think we'll get to universal pre-K for all kids earning up to free for all kids earning up to $100,000, their parents, within the next couple of years. And we'll be one of the first states in the country to be able to say that. And let me tell you why I'm particularly proud of this. Number one, every kindergarten teacher I talk to tells me the same thing. I can tell that child that came out of a really good pre-K program. I can tell they've been read to. Number two, everybody's talking about affordability. You're a young family with one or two kids, preschool, can save you $15,000, $20,000 a year. And even the business guys say, this is great. Mom and dad can get back to work a little easier. So I think I had strong support for this. We're going to get this done, John.
You have proposed some, speaking of spending on various things, you've proposed some reforms to legislative earmarks this session. Lawmakers have not yet passed a proposal that you put forward. What do you do if they don't pass your reforms to legislative earmarks?
So the earmarks are sort of legislatively directed things to go to not-for-profits and generally very good causes. There's been some noise about some of them that probably did not go to the appropriate cause and they were not properly monitored. So I took offense at that and I said we're not going to approve the next round of earmarks unless we have some real reforms, where that money's going to, how it's been spent, make sure it's being spent to the needs they got. It was passed virtually unanimously in the State House of Representatives, so we're making good progress now. And I think something will come out of the State Senate very soon.
So you're confident that something will come out of the Senate. You've been talking to people there, and you think that they're going to make these reforms law.
They better. I mean, you want to know where the money's going. You want to know how it's going to be spent. You want to make sure it's making a real difference. And I think the legislature's with me on this.
I want to ask a couple of questions about environmental issues. Just this week, President Trump he invoked the Defense Production Act to increase fossil fuel production and use for electricity. How would you handle a federal order if it came down for more gas pipelines or power plants in the state? Because that's something that very well could be coming down the pike, or down the pipeline, as it were. Yeah.
Well, we've had a lot of debate about this because, as you've probably heard, Connecticut, and more broadly, New England has some of the highest electric prices in the country.
You don't say.
I hear that a lot. And business used to complain about labor. They used to complain about taxes. They talk about electricity. So it hits you, it hits your budgets and what it means. So then what do you do about that? We need more generation and we need more conservation. Let's talk with generation. I'm not Wyoming. I can't put a straw in the ground. Eureka, out comes electricity. That's just not what we do here. We've always been at the end of the pipeline, so to speak. Give me just one more minute on this thing. So,
of course.
When I came into office, we had a decision to make. They wanted to pull the plug on the Millstone nuclear power plant. They were this close to pulling the plug on that. And I said, I don't know how we'd be able to keep the lights turned on. And by the way, it's about 90% of our carbon-free power. So we made a deal on that. Everybody else was, pulling the plug on nuclear power plants. We kept that going. And we made a deal with them. We said, look, I'll pay you a guaranteed 5 cents a kilowatt hour. They needed an incentive or else they're going to run. And so for the first couple of years, I looked really dumb because we had COVID. And as you maybe remember, they were giving away gas because they didn't know what to do with it. And that was costly. And that ended up in something called the public benefits charge, which people like to talk about. I got some good news, though, is every time Trump and Putin invade a country, you have a super cold winter, the price of natural gas goes through the roof. It is probably 5 times the price of wind power and 10 times the price of our Millstone contract. So that's made us about $450 million. So starting in about a week, we'll be able to virtually eliminate the public benefits charge and save everybody about $30 a month or $360 a year. And I tend to think that wind is going to be a piece of our future, although Trump hates it. We're bringing down solar from Maine. We're bringing down hydro from Quebec. And I'm also talking to Dominion about how we can get fusion or other types of nuclear to complement what we're doing at Millstone. That along the way, the fact that we're doing a lot in terms of conservation, in particular energy efficiency. If you haven't taken advantage of it, you got a house that was built prior to year 2000 or 1990, we can often save you a few $100s a month just by insulation and changing out some of the utilities.
But do you think that Connecticut should have more gas pipelines or power plants?
Well, the gas pipelines power the power plants, but you talk about
If President Trump says what Connecticut and the rest of the 50 states need to do is provide more infrastructure for fossil fuels, which is what President Trump, want to do, how do you respond to that? Because all those things you just said, obviously things that Connecticut is definitely doing to bring down the cost of electricity to renew on renewables. But unfortunately, the president doesn't see it that way. And he wants Ned Lamont to greenlight a pipeline to go through the state.
Look, I've been pretty open about this, John. I said, if you really think that natural gas can save my ratepayers a heck of a lot of money, we don't have to do that liquefied natural gas, which is even worse, show me the money. Make me a proposal. Let's see. Put your money where your mouth is. As I told you, the price of natural gas is through the roof right now, and I haven't had Williams or Donald Trump or anybody be willing to put their money where their mouth is and show me what natural gas could save us. And just between us, it'd be helpful if it saved us a lot of money because that would give me some negotiating leverage with Millstone and Dominion. Otherwise, they're going to say, you don't have any other choices, and then you'll pay a lot for nuclear.
Yeah.
You know, wind is about 10 cents. That's pretty good. The rooftop solar is expensive, but the solar, fields are about 10 cents.
Well, it was something I wanted to ask you about, though, because rooftop solar can be expensive, but it's something that is utilized in an awful lot of the world and an awful lot of the U.S. We had federal tax credits for that. Another thing that's sort of gone by the wayside. Do you think that the state should be back in the business of incentivizing people to do things like rooftop solar or other sorts of energy efficiency measures that have essentially gone away because of who's in the White House?
Yeah, but I think you got to be careful about it. Some of those subsidies can be very, very, very expensive. We subsidize solar. It costs us probably $200 million a year in the public benefits charge. One reason we did it, most of it goes back 20 years. But can I tell you one other thing? Everybody mocks the Green New Deal, what a joke it was. See, nobody needed it, didn't work. You know where it worked? It worked in China. You know why? China has solar power and solar panels at about 1/5 our cost. China has EVs called BYD, which are selling all over the world, everywhere except the United States. They're selling these cars at $25,000, half the price of the average American vehicle, and it's a really good deal right now when you look at the price of gasoline. They won on that battle.
A couple of states, Utah is one of them, have actually done something that a lot of the rest of the world has done and said you can have the type of solar panels that you just hang off your balcony. They've actually made it easier for people to get balcony solar, much cheaper, much more. Is that something that Connecticut should do?
Yeah, if it's much cheaper, maybe the commercial market will take advantage of that. We make sure we get regulation out of the way so people can do it. But we also speed up permitting, and if they need some extra incentives, we already are doing that. I got to get the right balance, though, because it also drives up the cost of electricity for people. As you mainly know, green and affordability are sort of two sides of the same coin.
Back to that public benefits charge thing is going to save people money this year, but this is temporary, right? This change in which we're going to get something back on our bill as opposed to having to pay something to the bill.
I can't predict the future. If you say the price of natural gas is going to come back down a lot, then it's temporary. If you think, boy, what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz could have ramifications for the next year plus, it's probably not temporary.
Okay, so you think it's something that could extend beyond just the next year, next couple of months?
Which is the regulatory board said you got this $30 a month savings at least for the next 12 months.
Okay.
So that's pretty good.
Of course, I'm just saying, would you push for something that is relief beyond just the next couple of months?
Well, the deal is it's for the next 12 months, so that's pretty good. And then we got to see what the world is, and maybe the price of generation is going up. I can't make promises that far out, but I think it's pretty good. 49 other states, the price of electricity is going this way, and Connecticut's going that way. I'll take it.
We got a couple of questions from people about this next thing. Like a lot of the country, Connecticut has been hit hard by opioid overdose deaths. Last year, there was a measure to establish an overdose prevention center or centers in the state. It nearly gained a passage. but it ultimately failed. You were opposed to it at the time. You said you wanted to wait and see what happened with similar efforts in other states. Do you now support this effort?
This is safe drug injection sites, I think is what you're talking about, right?
Correct. There's
Yeah.
a couple different names for them, but that's
I
one
mean,
of
the
them.
good
Yes.
news is our opioid deaths have gone down dramatically the last few years. We do have harm reduction centers. We do have recovery centers. We're making progress there, and America's making progress there. My personal feeling is, one or two states have just started trying to do safe injection sites, and I'm a little hesitant about that, to be blunt about it. I think it maybe sends a signal, which is not necessarily the signal we want, and I haven't seen much experience. California tried it, and they pulled back on it a couple of years ago. But I'm also open-minded. We'll take a look at how the world changes. Right now, we're making progress on opioid deaths. We're making good progress. I mean, it was hell on earth coming out of COVID. Everybody was, it was tough. And I'll do what we do to keep people safe. But in terms of injection sites, not for me right now.
Okay, not for you right now, but like, what's the trigger? When you say wait and see, what are you waiting for exactly? Because I think a lot of people who are in that world, including a lot of people with pretty good science behind it, say these sites work. Like, people who go to them, they don't die, which is a good thing. And many of them go to rehabilitation, which is an even better thing. So what in
More
your mind
people
are-
not dying. We have more people going to rehabilitation right now. And most states have changed their mind that we're experimenting with that. They've had a test going on in Rhode Island for about a year, and one or two sites in New York, just one or two. So it's very early. But to your point, John, other countries are doing this. How
Sure.
come we don't follow Vancouver's lead? Wait and see.
Yeah. How come we don't follow Vancouver's lead? There's a lot of countries that have been doing this for a while. So I just again, when you say wait and see, just what are we waiting for? I just want to make sure I understand.
I think it's very early to take that big a leap where we allow people to inject drugs legally in harm reduction centers. We have Narcan, we have safe needles, we do a lot of things, but we don't provide the drugs and let them inject there, and I'm not ready to go there yet.
Okay. Bob from Milford wrote us. He said, this year you proposed free transportation for veterans. It seems to be bogged down in the legislature. I'm not sure how true that is at this moment. I'll ask you about it. With the requirement for Connecticut Veterans Affairs to issue passes, it appears to make it difficult for veterans without transportation to access the passes. Could you talk a bit more about this, about the reality of this plan and getting veterans to access public transportation without having to jump through a bunch of hoops?
Start with the veterans. Anything I can do for the veterans, it's an enormous priority for me. And, we have, education and jobs, and we built more housing for veterans. And we have a proposal before the legislature for free public transportation. And we'll see, this is sausage is being made. There are a lot of priorities out there, but this is a priority for me, and I'd like to get over the finish line. I'll tell you something else, though. I mean, remember during the worst of COVID, nobody wanted to touch anything. Remember, you thought it was all, So we said, all right, all of our buses are going to be free. And we had free bus service around the state of Connecticut. It wasn't cheap, but they gave us some COVID money. We were able to pay for it. And more people took the bus, less cars, and just made life a lot more affordable. Federal Department of Transportation doesn't like that. So I've tried a little backdoor saying, how about we start with veterans? How can you oppose that?
Okay, so I like this. So we're going to start with veterans, which is, of course, a great place to start. So you're saying that maybe we could get to a place where you just give people free bus service across the state for everybody?
Mondami likes the idea.
Well,
look, here's the deal. You guys look around. 2/3 of these buses are 2/3 empty 2/3 of the time. And those are empty seats. Why aren't I taking care of people? Maybe I start with seniors. Maybe we do more people with disabilities. Maybe people on their way to job. Maybe people on their way to childcare. Or maybe I just make it free, because I think that's something. I already subsidize these things at, 60%. Why don't we subsidize it at more than that?
what would it cost? It's such a great idea. Let's just do it. Like right now, let's just agree to do this. I mean, how much does it cost? Can we make this happen?
Well, like I said, it's against the law, so that's one problem, and I have to fit it into the budget.
See, people do things that are against the law all the time in government. I read about this constantly.
Right? I'll bore you with the details. When I came in the office, we have something called a special transportation fund. It was zero. There was nothing in there. The federal government said, we're not going to help you fix your roads and bridges because you can't put up your 20%. So we tried a couple of things, one of which everybody hated, called tolls. So, then we moved some sales tax over there. So our transportation fund is solvent. But I'll tell you, it's... we're building more than we ever have before, thanks to a guy that's much maligned named Joe Biden. We're building our roads, our bridges. The rail is going to be, 20 minutes faster in the next 5 years, but we have to put up our, revenues to do that. So I watch the transportation fund very carefully before I promise things I can't. Look, I hate the high price of gasoline, but it's not bad for our special transportation fund.
I always appreciate it when you bring up tolls and I don't have to. I think that's always
good. Then you don't have to.
That's always a fun thing. Denise from Fairfield and many other people wrote, "What will Governor Lamont do to secure polling places from ICE agents trying to intimidate voters in November?"
Trump is trying to scare the hell out of people. And when it comes to voting, for example, he said, "I want to see your voter rolls." We said, "You're not seeing our voter rolls." And I want to see the voter rolls so I can make sure that people applying for absentee ballots by mail are actually legitimate. And I said, I don't want the guy who said, find me 11,780 votes in Georgia to determine who's legitimate and who's not. But John, the fact that we're talking about this means a lot of people are thinking, people of color perhaps, are saying that maybe all other things being equal, I don't want to vote. Maybe it's just not my year to vote. And I got to do everything I can to not let him scare you away from voting. We have early voting, 2 weeks right now. We have no excuse absentee balloting. We're trying to make it easier for people to vote. They're trying to make you find your birth certificate in the bottom of some trunk in the attic. And but that's what I worry about there. In terms of securing the polling places, I've got a bill before the legislature that says ICE can't be within whatever it is, a few hundred yards of a polling place. Just between us, I'm not positive it's 100% enforceable because they're the federal government. There's something about supremacy. But so far, so good. We've said, I want you to stay away from our schools and our courthouses and our houses of worship. And 98% of the time they've done that just because of our signaling.
We do have early voting. We have absentee balloting. They're trying to get complete absentee balloting across the finish line. That's not quite there yet. Would that help to alleviate some of the problems, right? Just make it so people just don't have to go to the polling places as much?
They do it in Utah and, I don't know, Oregon and a few other places. It's had pretty good success. But, we'll see. Let's start with the no excuse absentee balloting and see where we go from there. You know me, I like to walk before I run.
Yeah, I get that. It does. I'm wondering, you've been at this a long time. Do you, how do you deal with the fact that people do tell you an awful lot, probably, Governor, I'd like you to pick up the pace. I'd like you to run as opposed to just walking first. Maybe just let's barge through the door and let's not wait and see what's on the other side so much. I know that this is something that you have to hear quite a bit. How do you deal with that both sort of personally and professionally?
I take it from people that make a lot of promises they've never had to deliver on. We came in the office, they've been talking about a $15 minimum wage for the previous 10 years. We got that passed in the first 6 months, and today it's a $17 minimum wage. Republicans said it's going to drive your economy into a ditch. We have one of the fastest growing economies. They had tried to do paid family and medical leave. We got that done. What that means, so you don't have to choose between a newborn baby and the job you love, it makes a difference. I told you what we've done on early childhood. I think I'm not the loudest, but we get stuff done. And I'm a progressive who gets stuff done.
This conversation is a conversation at the end of the legislative session. It's not an election conversation. However, because you're running for re-election, I should just ask, what is it that you hope to accomplish in another term that you haven't done already? And I think a lot of people would ask, why haven't you done it already? What is it that there is left for Ned Lamont to do as governor of Connecticut?
I'd say that after 12 years, you're one of the most junior people in the U.S. Senate. So you're just getting your feet under you as you get going. My first term, I think we got our budget under control. We're just beginning to make some other big initiatives, and COVID hit. That slowed everything up for a few years. We're catching up right now. I think I told you what we got to get over the finish line in infrastructure, what we got to do to get early childhood, make that universal for everybody, affordable, and what we got to do. And I mentioned the fact that now the biggest problem I got confronting us is the high price of healthcare, high cost of healthcare. If I have a priority, that's what it is right now. And you say, why didn't you fix all that in the first 7 years? Well, we got a lot done. I'm going to finish it in 12 years.
Okay, so what exactly do you do about the high cost of health care?
I'll probably call Bob Patricelli for starters. I'll tell you one thing that struck me. This is interesting, because I come in the business world. Usually you win or lose bids by, 10% or something. There's a competitive market out there. You look at the price of hospitalization in the state, and some places cost 50, 60% more than other places. And that's because they have a lot of market power. It's not because they're better. It's not because they have a lower infection rate. It's because they have a lot of market power. So do I. I've got state employees. I've got retirees. I got small business. I got folks that say, hey, maybe we can go to those hospitals where you get the very best value. When I say value, it's quality of care, not just cost. I don't know if I'll be able to get it through because the hospitals are very powerful in the legislature, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, hospitals are very powerful in the legislature. The insurance companies are very powerful in the state. I mean, how much do you think about Connecticut being some sort of a laboratory for just really thinking about the way that we deliver healthcare quite a bit differently? Like, do you ever just think we could do something that is, because of our size and scale, because we have all these, brilliant people for the insurance industry here, because we've got Yale and we've got all these great hospital systems and all these smart minds, we could really put together something that provides a far better and far more efficient form of healthcare than any other state could. Is that something that you think about sometimes?
I do.
Okay.
I think it's true. We're a small state. I've been doing this for a while. I know a lot of people. We're one telephone call away. And we do have some of the best hospitals in the world in this state. We are the insurance capital of the world, and we're small enough to be innovative. So I think about that all the time. I think this Connecticut option, this preferred network, is a good way to go. And that's a big step forward from Obamacare, which I think was a very important step because fewer and fewer people get their insurance through their company anymore. We have more and more gig workers and independent workers, and small business can't afford health insurance. I'd say less than half of the small businesses with less than 50 employees even provide health insurance for people. And then you know who pays for it? We do. It's called Medicaid. So I'm thinking about this a lot.
What do you see as the biggest impediments to making some of the big changes that you think need to happen?
Oh, there's a lot of institutions that don't like it when I talk this way.
Like, give me one. What's an institution?
Big hospitals that charge 50% more.
Mm-hmm.
Can I leave it at that?
Okay, so what can we do about that? What can you do about that?
As I suggested before, we've got a group that's looking into this. I am working with the hospitals. I don't do this, I say this. That's just a style I've got. It's served me well. I talked to some of the best healthcare people around. I talked to the insurance guys because maybe some of them are going to manage this preferred network. I'm not sure I want the taxpayers subsidizing the whole thing. And we're going to have to walk before we run. I've said it twice now, but we're going to get there.
Yeah. What is a message that you want to send before the end of this legislative session to the lawmakers who are listening to this, or probably who you talk to all the time? I mean, what's something you really want to get done over the course of the next little bit of time before the session ends?
I want an honestly balanced budget that doesn't create deficits in the out years like all my predecessors did on a routine basis. I want to get our early childhood over the finish line and do that right. And I want to take another look at how we fund our schools because we are blessed with having the best schools in the country, but that only works if it works for the local property owners and it works for the teachers and students.
Do you think, I mean, some of the folks at the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, I mean, they say that the funding system right now, it's like the biggest problem with affordability. Do you agree with that? That like the way that we fund schools in the state is the biggest problem in terms of affordability in Connecticut?
No, here's the fact. So let's say we spend on average 30% more per student than almost any state except for the New England states. Our state contribution to education is about average compared to all the other states in the country. Not way above average, but it's about average. But because we spend a lot more per student and we get good results for it, it looks like we're doing a little bit less. So what I've got to do is figure out how I get that balance right, take care of those schools that are most in need, how I help them save money on the back office, save money on special education, and then make sure we're there to keep the kids in the classroom, the best classrooms in the world.
Governor, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it. It's good to see you once again. After 20 years, it's like we haven't really changed all that much, honestly. But
that beard's a new look for you. I got to tell you that.
The beard's been here for a while. Like I said, the beard's been about as long as your white hair's been here. So, Governor, thank you very much. I appreciate
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks to everyone who's joined us in person. Thanks to those who have joined our remote live stream. A big thanks to Celia Klotzer, who produced this, and all of our events here at the Connecticut Mirror, including our next event, which is coming up. It's Connecticut Mirror's community engagement reporter, Mariana Navarrete, who is hosting a community listening session at the University of Hartford. That's Wednesday, April 29th, 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. You can visit ctmirror.org/events for more information. While you're there, please click the donate button and support the work of my colleagues at the Connecticut Mirror. You got to support independent journalism because that's how we can keep government honest. It's how we can know what's happening around the state and around the world. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming out tonight. Have a good night. Thanks so much. Yeah, good to see you too. No, it's okay.